but we are going out on the video chat this morning to sunny and hot Texas. There he is, the Reaper. He is repping his school, TCU, Reggie Hunt, number 9. Good morning, Reggie. How you doing?
What's up, Roddy Rod? Miss
Hey,
you, man.
Riders won. Everybody's happy around here this morning. They just played last night. You know the feeling. Do you remember it?
Like it was yesterday. They must be having a great time out there. I know how we like to win out there in Ryderville. So,
well, you know what? It's been far too long since you've been here. I would suggest it's probably your Plaza of Honor induction, is it not? Am I wrong in that?
You're a little bit wrong. I was there for West. I was there for Westgate induction about a couple of years ago, so a little bit past that time, but definitely due to be back up there at some point. So you're kind of right too. Well.
Reggie, yeah, it's always been too long, and you always have a home here, as I tell all our greats. But before we get into some of the football talk and the memories, can you update us and our viewers this morning and listeners on what's new in the life of Reggie Hunt?
It's a little bit new. I'm still in education, teaching kids and mentoring kids on a daily basis. I run an organization, the Pedersen Killer Bees, where we run a football club, a football basketball club, a track club, and all the above for future athletes of Denison. So my brother and I, we run that organization. So between education, that's keeping us busy, pretty busy.
How much are you? Sorry, Reg. How much are you keeping track of the Riders or even watching CFL games? What's their availability down there in Denison, Texas?
A lot more availability than it used to be. I'm a little jealous of that, to be honest with you, because they get a lot of TV time down here, and I'm pretty proud to show them off. So I get a chance to watch every once in a while. I don't watch all the games, but I do keep up quite a bit. I know some of the players, kind of keep up in that regard, that I can name some players. And yeah, I know some of the guys that's still working in the organization. I still kind of keep in contact with, so I'm still pretty familiar.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I know you played with Kenton Keith here. Kenton's in Austin, Texas now, doing coaching and training. He said the exact same thing. He goes, he wished these games were on when he was playing. So that's good that they're getting the exposure down there. What's that?
Yes. I said, oh, my goodness. Yes, for sure. I know they must love that, because we begged and pleaded for years of coverage on TV down here when we played up there. So it's a great thing for sure.
Reggie Hunt with us this morning from Denison, Texas. I got a lot of things flooding through my mind here. One is we've been on the Jeremy O'Day train since the day he was hired in January as the next general manager of this club. Reaper, he has not made a misstep. This team's won 4 of its last 5 games, far exceeded the expectations of the club. When you were playing with Jeremy, maybe knocking heads with him from time to time at practice, did you ever think that he would go on one day to be the general manager of a CFL team?
I never thought about it, but when it happened, I definitely wasn't surprised at it. He's kind of been one of those kind of guys that kind of followed the Riders for a while and kind of know his stuff, and usually on top of things and very, very organized. So it doesn't surprise me, to say the least. I got a lot of respect for Jeremy. He's kind of been a stand-up guy. Always had respect for him. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me not one bit that he's not only in the office, but he's doing a great job as well.
You know, you mentioned the coaching you're doing now. Do you have any aspirations on getting into the pro game, or are you happy doing with what you're doing? Because we all know, anybody that works in football, how big it is what you're doing now. But do you have any interest in coming up here to the CFL to do it?
I thought about it, especially a few years ago when I guest coached for Calgary. And I got my friend out there at BC, coaching out there at BC, so I talked to him about it as well. So it's kind of been on my mind. Never really pulled the trigger or thought it all the way through, but it has kind of hit the surface a little bit, and who knows? I still stay in coaching. I'm still heavily involved in football. Did some recruiting for Saskatchewan last year, so who knows? I'm definitely open to it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that we got that out there, at least, so teams could reach out to you, and then maybe you could decide whether you wanted to do it or not. Now, Reggie, here's another one. You talked about it when you went into the plaza, but for our younger viewers, let's update them. We had a linebacker here named George White. George White. He ended up going to the Packers, and everybody's worried. How are we going to replace George White at will? Linebacker, we're going to be terrible. Well, from the day you showed up, which I assume Roy Shivers found you, I don't even remember how it happened. Nobody was talking about George White. And all of a sudden, you're in the Hall of Fame and you're a Grey Cup champion. What do you remember about your beginnings with the Saskatchewan Roughriders?
When I first got there, obviously everything was a big change to me. And I do remember hearing the name George White quite a bit. And then he moved on to pursue an NFL career. Then I heard he got cut and was headed back, and that actually put the pressure on me to step my game up even more. I didn't get afraid. I didn't shy from competition or anything like that. I was pretty much just buckled up my chin strap and said, "Let's get it." And I think George White, and all due respect to him, when he came back, he pushed me pretty hard. Great athlete, always found a way to get to the ball, and that wasn't something that was easy. Fortunately for myself, I was playing pretty well in the position when he got back. And Richie Hall approached me and said, "Hey, this is your job, man. This is
Reggie, do you remember that big hit on Jason Claremont?
Do I remember the big hit on Jason Claremont?
Which one?
I do remember. I remember before and after. I don't remember during the time. Yeah, that was a
playoff game. I'm thinking there.
Yeah, that was a brick wall. Jason Claremont and I joke about it quite a bit, that I might have taken a couple of years off our career, but
it was. Well, you know what? That's actually a great question, because if you're watching these CFL games, they're not a lot different than the NFL. Just the way the game has changed. You were known as a feared hitter. How would you have survived in today's game? And you know how they're teaching kids now to tackle with their head behind the target as opposed to head on, like you did. How's the game changed from your days?
It's definitely different, definitely better though. I think with guys getting bigger, stronger, faster, it's definitely necessary in the game to keep that head out of it as much as possible. Having said that, I don't think that I've delivered too many blows with my head or whatever. I believe that with the Claremont call, that might have been called for targeting nowadays. Fortunately for me, it wasn't back then, but nowadays, I think that would be called for targeting. So I have to have a different approach then. And to be honest with you, on that particular play, I think I was going for the ball before I turned it into a hit. So, but on that play, I think that would have been called for targeting.
Here's one. Remember the night you set the record for all-time tackles in a game in the CF, like single-game tackles? It's 16 now, is it not? Was it 16?
Yep, 16.
And because we got a Bomber fan here. I remember that because we were getting killed.
We got a Bomber fan in the house.
We were getting killed. Yeah, Dave, what do you remember about Reggie Hunt? Tell us your Reggie Hunt stories.
Yeah, well, anybody wearing green, especially Reggie Hunt, he was an enemy, and man, it was tough playing against him. Now you can go back and you can watch the film, and you can watch the games, the classics on demand, and he's the guy that you hated the most, but if he's on your team, he'd be the most popular player.
Right, and he was.
Absolutely, and he was. And it's great listening to the stories now. It's fantastic. What stands out for you most about your career in Regina?
To be honest with you, other than finally winning the Grey Cup, it's the battles with Winnipeg, man. The Labor Day Classics and the what is it called? The bowl afterwards.
Banjo Bowl.
No, the Banjo Bowl.
Yeah.
Going back and forth with Winnipeg, and John back and forth with those boys from Calgary who I hated so much, and the boys from Edmonton who I hated so much, and the BC Lions who I hated so much. So
I hated them too, Reaper. That's the thing. Now their feelings are all hurt. We all hated them. The hate's gone from the game. It's not as much fun anymore. But Reggie, this is
hate's gone, man.
It's gone, and I don't know if we're going to get it back. They don't seem to want to get it back, but. We have had a theme of our guests that have been through here, like Stevie Baggs and who else? I said Kenton Keith. John Chick didn't leave on his own, but some of those guys left on their own for the money. And you went to Montreal. You cashed in. And these guys have come back and said, you know what? If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have left. I got to think like they would have stayed here and finished their career here. Do you have the same sentiment?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, my first choice was always to stay with the Riders. No, I don't take nothing away from Montreal. I had a great time, great experience, and great teammates there. But I thought my heart always belonged to Saskatchewan. Never really wanted to leave. Those kind of things happen in the business, and we kind of mutually agreed to kind of move on from a contract talks, and things kind of happened after that. But I have no ill regards for anybody in the organization, and Yes, do I wish I'd played my whole career? Yeah, absolutely. But didn't happen that way, and I'm still fortunate for the years I got to play with him for sure.
Of course, and you got into the Hall of Fame where you belong. Reaper, I could talk to you, I think, till midnight, but they're telling me that we got to get to a commercial here. Anything else for the Rider Nation before we let you go?
I need to visit one day. I need to visit one day soon. It's been too long, as you said. So that's my home away from home, and I tell people that all the time. So love my second home in Regina, Saskatchewan. All
right, Reaper, thanks for this. And when we're in Dallas, we'll be sure to look you up.
Please do.
All right. Reggie, the Reaper Hunt, joining us from Denison, Texas this morning. And I thought we were going to be going with the Rod Pedersen Show inaugural sports trip to Dallas, and the Reaper would have been on that show. But we're going to be going to Houston, Texas, December 5th to the 10th. And you're invited to join us through Uniglobe Travel. Go to rodpedersen.com/trip. But Dave, it was long before you and I even knew each other, was that game in Winnipeg. You guys can take your headphones off if you want. That Reggie set that tackles record, and I called the game, and the Bombers were killing the Riders that night. Mm-hmm. Mike Sellers, and I can't remember who the quarterback was, probably KG. And Reggie gets his 16th tackle. He's on the sidelines, and the guys are like, "We're getting killed." He's like, "I don't care. I set the record." He knew as the game was going on how close he was.
Now, what was he playing? Outside linebacker? Or
he was playing will linebacker. Yeah, and that was where he was, and he was a killer.
Intensity, like that's
he was a
that's
killer.
The thing that, and you know, I've been to Grey Cups and seen him like from a distance, not bumped up to talk to him, and he's always seemed like a class individual. And that just solidified what I always believed. But again, it was like I remember it was probably 1994. The World Cup of Hockey was in Vancouver, and at the time we still had the Winnipeg Jets playing. And when Theoren Fleury came to town, you hated Theoren Fleury, you absolutely hated him. But when I'm watching a World Cup, a Canada game,
you're cheering for him.
Theoren Fleury was all of a sudden became my favorite hockey player, and Reggie and I watched. Of course, when Reggie went to Montreal, like he didn't have that vested interest anymore. But man, oh man, alive, that guy just played with such intensity. And what a class individual too.
Hey, just before we break, number 45's coming up in the Facebook string, and some good ones. Tom Pura, you're in Grand Prairie, right, Tom? I believe that's where he's watching the program this morning. He says Mike Sellers actually wore number 45 too, ironically.
Big fullback for the Bombers.
Oh, and the Washington Redskins.
That's
I think
right.
he wore 45 of the Skins too, didn't he?
So, yeah. What a great career he had.
Oh, very tough to tackle. That's what I remember of one Mike Sellers. Yeah. And so it is episode 45. So we're talking about number 45s. And people have written in Mike McCullough, of course, Randy Srachensky, Casey Rogers, couple former riders there.
Michael Jordan
of the Chicago White Sox when he played baseball.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.